Tonight, a warning shot. Putin putting the U.S. on notice not to send troops to help Ukraine. He says Russia is ready to use nukes. And he's boasting that his arsenal has an edge on America's. It comes as a new U.S. intelligence assessment finds that Russia's struggles on the battlefield could make Putin more likely to follow through.
There's a reason why he hates us. And if you listen to Vladimir Putin and what he's saying, I mean, look, he's wrong for invading Ukraine. It's horrible. And a lot of them are soldiers, but a lot of them are civilians. And but to say he was unprovoked is like insane. It's just only people who know nothing about the history of this conflict would say there was no provocation. Look, the promise, and this is what he was saying, and he's absolutely right, is that the promise when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, and this was like verbally promised and put in writing, was that NATO would not expand 1 inch to the east. And NATO at that point, the line then was through Germany, right? Yeah, that used to be your realm of influence. And every single president since then has moved NATO east to the point that NATO is now on Russia's border. And in Ukraine, even though they didn't officially join NATO, there was always talk of it. Kamala Harris, right before the start of the war, said we're looking to put Ukraine into NATO.
Putin says he will end the war if Ukraine gives him more land, with his terms being that Ukraine surrenders the 4 regions that Russia partially occupies and abandons its bid to join NATO. Also, Ukraine would have to demilitarize and the West would have to remove their sanctions on Russia, which is why you have Ukraine saying this is a complete sham and offensive to common sense. And Zelensky saying they don't trust Putin or his ultimatum, with another Ukrainian official calling on their allies to stop listening to Russia, saying there is no novelty in this, no real peace proposals, and no desire to end the war. But there is a desire not to pay for this war and to continue it in new formats. It's all a complete sham. And you have Western officials warning that any truce or peace agreement is just a guise to allow Russia to regroup and launch a stronger offensive in the future.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced plans to deploy tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, his neighbouring ally. Putin blames his decision on the UK supplying Ukraine with anti-tank ammunition rumoured to contain depleted uranium, but the UK denies this. The move is seen as part of Putin's game to intimidate NATO, with experts suggesting it may be a response to faltering military operations in Ukraine and the lack of benefits from recent trade agreements with China. While the US says it is monitoring the situation, they also say that they have not seen any indications that Russia is preparing to use a nuclear weapon.
Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that Russia is ready to use nuclear weapons if there is any threat to Russia's existence or independence. Putin said it would be a significant escalation if the U.S. sent troops into Ukraine. However, he added that he believes President Biden understands the situation and he does not think the world is heading toward a nuclear conflict. Meanwhile, the Biden administration says that it is sending another $300 million worth of weapons to Ukraine. Biden has said the U.S. will not send troops to Ukraine. By the way, this was a short-term measure, that funding, while Congress is working on a larger emergency aid bill.
They're drafting people in Russia. They're fucking drafting. It's called partial drafting. So the men are divided into 3 categories. The first category is before 35 years old, but with a military experience. So whoever served in the army will be drafted first. They already got drafted. So my best friend, he managed to leave the country yesterday. My dad at least too old, but my best friend, she cannot live with her husband. They don't have any money, and I don't know if they're still letting people leave. Yesterday night they did, but if you received an army letter invitation, you cannot leave. If you leave, it will be immediate 10-year sentence in jail.
После того, как одели, делайте резкий выдох. Ну быстрее,
для защиты нашей Родины, ее суверенитета и территориальной целостности, для обеспечения безопасности нашего народа и людей на освобожденных территориях, считаю необходимым поддержать предложение Министерства обороны и Генерального штаба о проведении в Российской Федерации частичной мобилизации. В ход пошел и ядерный шантаж. Речь идет не только о поощряемых Западом обстрелах Запорожской атомной электростанции, что грозит атомной катастрофой, но и о высказываниях некоторых высокопоставленных представителей ведущих государств НАТО о возможности и допустимости применения против России оружия массового поражения, ядерного оружия. Тем, кто позволяет себе такие заявления в отношении России, хочу напомнить, что наша страна также располагает различными средствами поражения, а по отдельным компонентам и более современными, чем у стран НАТО. И при угрозе территориальной целостности нашей страны для защиты России и нашего народа мы, безусловно, используем все имеющиеся в нашем распоряжении средства.